What's up, everybody? So the hobby area doesn't have adequate lighting, so we're in the kitchen to do this little video here, and I'm still working on getting things situated, you know, unpacking all of the boxes and stuff. Everything's here, I just gotta unpack things, and you know, working a full-time job, trying to have a little bit of free time. You gotta sleep in there too. You know, commute, what have you, upkeep. It takes time. So the hobby area isn't ready to start doing painting, or more importantly, to start repairing Apollo yet. But as I mentioned in the update ramble when I got my internet back, I want to do a little video on paints, particularly the shelf life and things about paints and when to get rid of it and so forth. So this is that video. I got some examples here of things. It's not going to be too much to see real, you know, at all. I'm not going to take a brush and paint on anything because there's no real need to. I just want to make a mention, this is for acrylic paints. I don't know enough about enamels to talk about them, and alcohol-based paints are easily revivable with isopropyl alcohol, 91% or higher. So when it comes to acrylics, however, they definitely have a shelf life, and that shelf life varies. It's not like I can tell you you got 6 months until the paint will go bad or whatever. It depends on how long it sits, how much air, quote unquote, has been introduced, or it's just how much air has been, quote unquote, introduced into the paint. With these paint pots, you know, every time you open it, you're exposing it. So these dry up easier than an eyedropper, which will at best, or usually just dry up in here, and then the rest of it stays fine like this paint did. Although this paint is still bad, and we'll go into that in a second. So that can affect how long a paint can sit, right? Before drying up, getting gummed up, and then becoming unsalvageable. How much of the paint is left in the pot? A full pot is much more salvageable than a near empty pot, sitting for the same amount of time. Metallics can separate. Some paint pigments can separate in the acrylic paint, and sometimes the acrylic medium in the paint can yellow, tinge, and just tarnish or taint the paint up. So there's different ways in which the paint can, quote unquote, go bad. What this means for us as hobbyists is we gotta be on top of our paint game, if you will. And I think the longer you get in this hobby, the more and more likely that you are to be as guilty as I am of amassing a whole bunch of paint pots and not really getting rid of them, or even doing upkeep and inventory stock of what you got, which can result in doubles of a paint being purchased because you forgot you had it because you used it so little and you just needed it for specific things, and you can't find it because you stored it somewhere, so you went out and bought it, then you found it again. Whatever the case is, the longer you're in this hobby, the more and more likely you are to be guilty of amassing a collection, an absurd amount of paint pots with varying amounts of paint left in them in different stages of potentially salvageable to being bad. So to me, those are acrylics, by the way, and I can't really talk on them because their acrylics behave differently. So what I'm saying here is for non-Tamiya acrylics. I have Reaper paints. This is Vallejo paint acrylic. In both eyedroppers. I also have more colors, but one of the things is that you gotta pay attention to, especially for metallics, is settling, clumping, and overall separation, unrecoverable separation. And that's what this is. This is supposed to be a gold. I shook it up a bunch. There's a bit of the gold residue left in here somewhere, maybe. But it is definitely not gold. You can kind of see like there's some type of gold clump in there of the metallic flake and what have you, but it's useless, it's worthless now. It's bad paint. So this is something that would have to be chucked. I am by no means an expert, by the way. Somebody might be screaming at their monitor, that's recoverable if you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, but that's far too much. This is bad paint. It's not just paint. I had Vallejo's acrylic, well, not acrylic, I mean, I guess it is acrylic, but a matte varnish from Vallejo that I've used, but it got to the point where it just got bad from, even though it was in use, it's was years old and went bad that way. So even with use, paint and paint-like things that you get can go bad. All right, so with that said, easily enough to talk about. This wash, shades, whatever the case is. This is still good. It might be a little bit darker, a little more concentrated than standard Devlin mud, but it's still very much a liquid, still working. It still could work just fine. And this sat for as long as everything else, which is around 5 years. It doesn't have to sit that long though, so bear that in mind. But it's still good after 5 years of sitting, which I was impressed about. We have Dark Angels Green and Bleach Bone here. And one is recoverable, the Dark Angels Green, one isn't, the Bleach Bone. There is more Dark Angels Green in this pot, which is why I think it's still recoverable. This Bleach Bone, very empty and very spongy down there, or I should say almost like a poster tack, but no residue. The binder, the acrylic agent, whatever it is, other terminologies, whatever you want to call it, in there is all basically set, if you will, dried up. If you put water in here, some acrylic medium in here, and you put like a toothpick to kind of break things up and then shake it around a bunch, you're going to get Bleach Bone-esque water, but it's not really going to be a paint or even a wash. So this is no good either. The Dark Angels Green is dark, so it's hard to see the paint. It's a darker paint, but you can see a sheen in there. It's still wet. This has a consistency, which is why I got some green underneath my fingernail when I went to test it. This has the consistency of like a tube of paint, like paint paste. So it reminds me of a tube of paint. People paint with tubes of paint all the time. They throw them down, whatever, not for our hobby, but there's tube paint out there, let's be real, for acrylic. So this I feel is recoverable. A little bit of lamium medium in there, a little bit of water perhaps as well, a vigorous shake and stirring, and you'll get a Dark Angels Green like paint back. I'll come back to why I said Dark Angels Green like in a moment. These foundation paints, which are heavily pigmented, one is good and one isn't. The Adeptus Battle Gray was very light on paint when it went into storage. This isn't dried up like Bleach Bone is. It's still a little moist in there, but it's to the point where it's not recoverable really. So that's gone to the wayside. As you open it up, you can see it looks a little shiny in there, a little dark in. Oh, well, it is very dark because it's gray. Almost a little moist in there, but you're not going to get the color you expect to get if you really try and revive this. This Mechrite Red is almost the same way as Dark Angels Green. It might be even a little wetter. So this, again, would be revivable to get a Mechrite Red-esque paint. So I say esque for these two because depending upon how you revive them and how much water is needed and lamium medium is needed, you may not get the exact same hue. Like if you were to compare this to fresh pots of themselves, which I know they don't make anymore, but what you would find is the potential that the hue or the shade of these might be a little off. So fair warning, disclaimer, style and whatnot. That way you can't say, well, Keeper of the Fortress said this will work and now my army looks weird. If it's your main armor color that's going to be predominantly displayed, I highly, highly recommend that if you are reviving paint for that and it's revivable, do a test first. Have a fresh pot of paint to test with on sprue, put them next to each other. If you really can't see a difference, then you should be okay to go ahead. When in doubt, use it for effects, use it for bases, terrain type stuff, whatever the case is, but not for the main armor color if you're just worried about it not matching. But outside of that, my recommendation for hobbyists, because I believe a lot of hobbyists are guilty of this, not just myself. So my recommendation is once every 6 months, take stock of your paints. Clean off your hobby table or an area, a level surface area, clear it off somewhere, lay out all your paints that you own and are aware of anyways, because you always forget about a pot or two sometimes. But lay out all your paints for you to see actively at once and go through them. Give them a shake, give them a look. Are they recoverable? Are they fine and no need to even worry about it? Or are they really on their way out? And make the call. What you'll find this does is help you weed out paint that you no longer can utilize, thus freeing up space to either buy more paint to continue the problem, right? To continue our addiction here with paint, or to free up space and just have a cleaner, neater hobby space. Anyways, that's my long-winded ramble, long story longer thing on paints here. I've thrown out a bunch of pots that are just dried up beyond use, beyond recovery. And while it does stink to do so, it's needed, it's required. You have to do it. And don't wait for a move to force you to have to do this. Be proactive about it, is I guess the moral of this story. Anyways, share your thoughts on paints, how you recover paint, revive your acrylic paints, and just, are you somebody who's guilty like I am of just letting your paint pots sit and amassing a huge collection of pots that might ultimately be worthless? Not all of them, but you could have a whole bunch of paint pots that you don't even realize you should be throwing out because you just, oh yeah, I'll put them back in storage and I'll buy another pot. And then really, why'd you do that? I don't know. It can't just be me out there. So share in the comments. Anyways, thanks for sticking through this. And until next time, leave any questions, comments, or requests in the comment section. Take it easy.